Salam. Greetings. Humility. Lately I've been meditating on the importance of this godly attribute. As I continue to live my life in the growth of Jah Rastafari, I begin to see how very important this particular fruit is, especially during these trying times of tribulation and other hardships. When one begins to grow in humility, they can begin to witness their own arrogance, ignorance, pride, and ego. Humility only comes when one begins to transform their heart and mind and continue walking in the spirit and in truth of Yahushua Ha-Moshiyach. This means I must not judge ones by appearance, whether they have long locks, they may speak a certain way, they may listen to roots and reggae all day long, burn the ganja 24/7, eat X amount of ital, and so forth. I must not judge on that appearance. I must not care what others may think or say about myself, nor should I be quick to jump to conclusions or illusions, rendering false judgment on ones. The spirit is the most important thing to work on, more than anything else. Rastafari does not seek the exaltation of self, self-promotion, self-pride, self-love, and self-satisfaction. Now, let's open to the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 3 through 4. Matthew, chapter 18, verses 3 through 4. And he said, and it goes on to say, and he said, I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So, no matter how many schools of thought, no matter how many religions that I have may learned in the past or have been through, I had to become that lidge, that child, that born-again child, willing to humble myself. And even if I knew something that others would try to teach, or even know things that others may not know, it's not about being arrogant by saying, oh, I already know that. You're preaching to the choir. It's not being big-headed. But one must remember what Christ said in the book of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 12. And it goes on to say in that chapter and verse, for whoever exalts himself, his own will, outside of Christ, for whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. So I and I do not exalt myself over the Almighty. However, exalted I and I become through His word of truth. Now let's turn to the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 6 through 10. 2 Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 6 through 10. And it goes on to say, for though I would desire to glory, I shall not be a fool, for I will say the truth. But now I forbear, lest any man should think of me above that which he seeth me to be, or that he heareth of me. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So, when one suffer affliction, as in Paul's case, it brings them nearer to Jah. As in Paul's case, he was dealing with afflictions and weaknesses as he was struck with a handicap, some sort of a disability. However, he found comfort in it as he began to build and quicken his spirit, became quickened in the spirit. So does this mean that ones should look down upon ones because they may have certain weaknesses and falsely criticize them just to exalt your own self? Not to criticize them in a godly manner, but some people criticize others just to exalt their own selves. Or should one seek to uplift his fellow brethren with sincerity and spirit, and not putting him down just to exalt your own self? So humility is essential in obtaining those fruits of the Spirit. And speaking on the fruits of the Spirit, let's turn to the book of Galatians. Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 26. Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 26. And it goes on to say, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And they that are Christ's have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vain glory, provoking one another, envying one another. So, here in this verse, it clearly shows the Christ-like attributes that one obtains while sacrificing that old self, while aligning themselves to reach that new self, in and through Yahushua Ha-Moshiyach, through prayer, meditation, and beginning to walk in the Spirit. Walking in the Spirit. And speaking on my own testimony, I can see how these Christ-like attributes begin to grow as one continues to water the Spirit with the word of Yahushua Ha-Moshiyach. While those devilish attributes, they starve and begin to diminish when one no longer feeds into it. So, humility definitely plays a very important and vital role in establishing that Christ consciousness, aligning oneself, not out to exalt oneself, however, only through the name of Jah Rastafari, and then through Yahushua Ha-Moshiyach. And once I do continue on trotting that path, establishing humility, then I shall be exalted as told in the book of 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 through 7. Okay? 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 through 7. Actually, we'll read 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6. And it goes on to say, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. So, Jah Adonai will exalt one when they continue to walk in humility continuously, not just for one day. However, to continue to walk and water that spirit with the word of Jah. and not exalt their own selfish desires. It is very important that one comprehends that we must live by the Spirit, not by the flesh. And that humility nowadays, in these days and times, plays such a very important and vital role. Because with humility, when one obtains humility, they can begin to establish and begin to grow in their tree those other fruits of the Spirit. So with that, I just want to say salam, and may Jah continue to guide the I and them. Salam.